Welcome back, everybody. Now, this part of the course, I want to talk about how to use Adobe Illustrator and the pattern making function to create repeats. Now, basically what you're going to do is you're just going to take one single element or several, place them into Illustrator, or you can draw them with the pen tool or create shapes. Use the pattern function to then create these really cool, dynamic, interesting repeats. Now, if this looks familiar, if you remember the Porsche from the clipping mask section, it's the same repeat. I just brought it in and turned it into a clipping mask, and voila, here it is on a Porsche. So you can really do some interesting and dynamic things once you have created the repeat pattern in Illustrator. Now, this is a little bit more advanced over here. We will get into how you can do this in the Photoshop portion of the course. But basically what you just do is, or in this case what I did, this is called mapping, where you place it into another image and then print it. You could use this for Instagram or if you have concept ideas. This is like the foundation of print design, and this is where I learned it, was in a print design course. So basically, again, you could really see the things that you can do and how you can apply this knowledge once you understand the foundation of Adobe Illustrator. Now in this case, this was just a watercolor that I did that I then took into Photoshop. So this is a little bit more advanced, but this is just an example I want you to see of what you can do once you understand how to create the repeats. Now, what we're gonna do is something a lot simpler. I'm gonna show you how to take a single element like these mushrooms right here and then bring them into Adobe Illustrator and turn them into a really cool repeat, which you can then take and turn into wallpaper or textile or t-shirt print, or you name it. You can turn these repeats into anything once you understand how to create them. So with that being said, let's get into it. Alrighty, so I think the best way to go about this would be to show you how to create repeats using a few different kinds of elements and a few different kinds of strategies. Overall, we're going to be using the the pattern making function here. However, I feel like it would be a disservice to you if I didn't show you these several different ways you could go about it, whether it be something as simple as a circle or that mushroom print or something like super crazy, super detailed. So first things first, we'll start with this circle. Now, we're good. All I did was click L, hold down Shift, draw the circle. So what you're gonna do now is with that object or shape selected, you're gonna come up to Object, Pattern, Make. You're gonna click OK. So a new pattern has been added to the swatches panel. So if you look over to the swatches panel, you can see that that circle has been added as one single element. You click OK, and then all of a sudden, you see this. Now I'm gonna zoom out a little bit. Don't worry about the spacing or it running off the artboard a little bit, doesn't matter. So you can name the new pattern. I usually don't, but in this case I will. We'll call it Circle 1. Now, right here, the width and height is this square. So let's make it a little bigger. You don't always have to do this, but in this case, we will. So we'll make it like a 6x6, and you'll see that when you do that, the circles start to kind of separate a little more. So, okay, now this is where it gets interesting, because this is pretty boring, you know. Yeah, it's a repeat, but okay. So that's the tile type. So each one of these circles would be its own, I'm doing air quote, like tile. Think of it as its own tile. So then when you select a different one, the orientation of the circles will change. So this is a little bit more dynamic, a little bit more interesting. And you'll see a little preview of what it will look like. Hex by column, hex by row. So you can really see, depending on which tile type you do, the dynamic differences between each one. So let's just do this. I like the hex by column, I like the orientation. Now, if you wanna make it bigger or smaller, you can always do that. If you wanna Command C, Command V, copy paste, add some more. You can it's okay if the elements or objects or shapes are kind of going over in this case, this blue line of whether it be the hex or the grid. Don't worry about it, it's fine. So you can really start to make like these really crazy detailed ones. And depending on where you move each element will depend on the print. So let's get rid of those because I'm not really a big fan of all these little circles. I'm just hitting Command Z to go back. Okay, there we go. So I like this. Now what we're gonna do is gonna come up here, click this, save a copy. Now I'll just call it Circle 2. And you'll notice as soon as you look into the swatches panel. There you go, it tells you the reminder. Now, here it is. So if you double click out of this, oops, we'll work with this in a little bit. So if you double click, you're gonna move out of the pattern function. And so now that I have my pattern made, this is usually what I end up doing to make sure I like the scale and the, I guess you could say, orientation of the repeat itself. So what I'll come over and do is I'll come in this area outside the artboard. I'll click M to bring up a square. I'll draw one square, and what I'll do is I usually will make this square white, because what I'm going to do is I'm going to Command C, Command F, copy and paste in front, and then in the fill of the square in the front, I'm going to click on the repeat. Now, you're probably thinking, Eric, that's like 5 circles. You can't even see the repeat. I know. This is what I do. So automatically, it's going to give me this. And all you're going to do is you're just going to change the scale of the repeat so you can get a better understanding of how it actually looks and determine the success of it. So with that top square, with that top square selected, you're going to come over to this tool right over here, the scale tool, and you're going to double click it, and this menu is going to come up. Now, what you're going to do is you want to transform the pattern. You want to actually make the pattern itself smaller. So you're going to always make sure that the transform objects box is unchecked, because in that case it'll just transform the object. You want to transform the pattern. And then you're going to come up here to the percentage, and you're going to decrease that number. So let's just show you what it looks like at 75% decrease. Click OK. And you can see it's starting to get smaller. Still not the best idea of how the overall repeat is, so I'm going to actually double click it, and let's do 50%. Getting there, okay, we're getting there. But you can see how as you shrink, almost like zoom out by scaling back, you could start to really see how the repeat looks, and that looks pretty good. So that's usually what I do when I make repeats, is after I add them to the swatches panel, and sometimes I'll make several different variations, and then I'll do what I just did here, scaling back, looking at the overall repeat itself by making it smaller, and that's how I'll determine which one I like the best. Okay, now usually what I'll do is I'll open up a new document and save this repeat as it is, in this case, so I could place it into another Illustrator document to make a clipping mask, or if I want to bring it into Photoshop, what I'll usually do is I'll just open up a new document and save this as is. Or if you want, you could always save both squares on top of each other to have the white background. If you want to change the white to maybe like a green or something, you just want to be conscious of the layers and the shapes that you have as far as colors go. Now, unfortunately, you can't actually change the color of the dots themselves. If you want to do that, here's how you do that. So you're actually going to have that top layer selected, right? You're going to come back up to Object, Pattern, Edit Pattern, and then this menu from before is going to come up. That's when you can go in, select that circle, maybe let's make it yellow, and then you're going to save another copy of it, and you'll notice in the swatches panel, now it's yellow. Double click out of it, and there you go. Now you have the yellow dot. So that's how you're going to change the actual colors. So just be mindful of all of that when you're making these repeats.